Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you on a Monday morning. As always, we're joined by Andrew Combo Salip to discuss all the things about the NBA. Combo, how's it going today on this nice Monday morning?
It's going well. I saw your background before we started recording. Obviously, we could always see your background, but I realized there was a space missing while you weren't in the picture, and I thought you could put a picture up of Combo dunking, and now I realize that your head's in the way. So
that space is
yeah.
I
So
put that there.
I
But,
guess we need to find a better spot for the Combo dunking photo.
well, or I'll put it there, and this whenever I feel like I'll just kind of move my head, and then you can see it, and then
Okay,
when you make a good point, I'll move my head and let everyone see it dunking.
There you go.
So that's a great idea. But let's talk a little bit about basketball, shall we? It was an interesting weekend, I suppose. I got my voice back to some degree, although I don't think we had an issue last show, did we? I think I sounded okay.
Coach Nick, can you give the people a 2-minute summary, let's say a 1-minute summary of your time at the concert in Vegas?
Sure. All right. Well, it's important because it relates to this in some degree. I'll tell you why in a second. But on Friday, we flew up to Vegas to go see U2 in the Sphere in their second to last concert. They played the last concert on Saturday. And, a big U2 fan. I had seen him in 1992, I believe, in Madison, Wisconsin.
Jordan's prime.
Yeah, it had been a while. And so saw them there. The show was interesting. It was certainly, the Sphere is amazing, at least the visuals. Bono doesn't sound like he used to. It's kind of rough. But you know what? We get old. We can't all, continue to perform like Jordan in his prime. So that was a little bit interesting. And the sound wasn't as immersive as I thought it should have been. They had the capabilities, but they really, for most of the time, kept it coming just from the stage area. But the key here is that I was able to get my tickets through SeatGeek. And so big shout out to them and thank them for helping me get those tickets. And make sure that you use my code B-Ball. You can now save. Actually, there's a new code for a limited time where you can save. Oh my goodness, I got to go check because it's a little bit different. By the way, I've been doing the SeatGeek ads for 7 years, so that's never changed until now. But the new one it's actually longer. It's not just your first purchase. It's let me just tell you right now. Here it is, B-Ball 10. And you can get 10% off your purchases, multiple purchases. It doesn't have to be your first one anymore. So get out there, buy a bunch of tickets. You get 10% off over multiple purchases, and that's better than the 20% off just for the first one, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
All right. So we got people out here. What's going on? Nice big chat. We got Emmanuel, Martin. What's up, Martin? What's the friend of the breakdown? Devontae, Jay Cruz, and then Oscar. Oh, Oscar. That's a really cool font he's using for Oscar on there. So don't forget, if you want to ask any questions that we want us to answer, the best way to do that would be on a super chat on the YouTube. We'll put it up on the screen. We'll give you a lot of hype and love. It'll really help us get this show going. So if that's how you want to get noticed that way, please do that. But let's talk a little bit about the ending of the Minnesota Timberwolves game last night, because I think it was worthy of discussion. Now, on Twitter, we've had a few people who are, I think what's interesting, Combo, is the, and you probably understand this as well on Twitter, when you get new information that might go against what you've learned, how do most people on Twitter tend to react to that kind of thing?
Explain.
Like you've always thought this was a certain way and a certain rule and a certain thing. And then when you see that someone else is telling you something that's the opposite of that, what do you think the basic reaction to many Twitter people is?
Tell me. I don't.
Okay. Yeah. Being a little esoteric. A lot of times people on Twitter will reject this new information and just assume that you are lying or you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know ball.
Are these facts or opinions?
Well, they're facts, especially when you're talking about, let's say, the travel rule, like when you can jump off of your pivot foot, you can lift your pivot and then, step with the other foot. And then, as long as you pass or shoot before it comes down, it's legal. On a step through, for instance, on a step through move, you can go off of 1 foot instead of 2. And a lot of people were just taught one way. They probably trust whoever taught them that, and they believe in that, and that was their whole life view for their whole lives. And when you realize that it's not that way, most people would say, "Oh, wow, thanks. I didn't realize that," or a certain amount of people. But on Twitter specifically, it tends to get people saying, "That is not right. You are lying. It's whatever." Well, okay, here is the rule. I don't care. They changed that rule. They must have changed it 2 years ago. And I'm like, no, it turns out you could do that for the entire entire game of basketball. You know what I mean? It's like there's a real just resistance to sort of new information. I think is sort of the idea here, because it kind of makes it seem like you have to admit you're wrong. And I think that's the key. No one needs to admit that they're wrong. It's just simply like new information, mix it in with the information you already have, and we go on. I think that's what we call learning, right? Like if you were in a classroom and you're learning something about biology and they tell you, I don't think you're going to troll the teacher and kind of tell them that's not right. You know, my dad told me blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and then you have a college professor telling you, something about biology, right? That should be how it works, right, Combo?
I think if you have a growth mindset, yes.
So how do you ever learn anything if you don't have a growth mindset?
There's, Carol Dweck's book, it's about the fixed mindset or the growth mindset.
But people obviously have fixed mindsets, and people obviously know not to like walk out in the middle of the street because it's the sign says don't walk. Like, how do those people learn anything then?
Oh, you got to learn life or death situations way quicker than basketball situations, because you'll die in those situations.
Fair enough. But I mean, I do feel like the people who don't have growth mindsets, like you're describing in that book, learn. They do learn. And so I think it's something to do with Twitter specifically. I think Twitter probably somehow encourages this rejection of like facts or rejection of new information.
Well, I think when you think something and you tweet about that, or even the algorithms on Instagram, they'll just give you a more extreme version of what you already thought, whether it be true or false.
Oh, okay.
Whether it be right or wrong.
All right, so let's get back. Let's get to where the focus. Forgive me, I got a little away.
No, I actually like conversations like this, but go ahead.
But we don't know if the other people listening to. So let's see. Okay. So here's what I was talking about. At the very end of the Clippers versus Timberwolves game, which is a very entertaining game, low scoring, interestingly enough, but that makes sense. These are two good defensive teams. The Timberwolves, and they had a lead and they kind of lost, so they kind of went up and down. They're down by 1 with 37 seconds left, and they get the ball back. Now, understand this. When you are down in the last minute of a game like this, you are losing. You don't have as many points as the other team. You have to go as quickly as you can and get the best shot you can as quickly as you can. That is the optimal way to approach this game clock management situation, okay? Now, the reason for that is that you need to have as many possessions as possible in order to try and get that lead back. Now, there at some point had been some weird traditional thought process that said, oh, you're down by 1, you can run the clock down and then, get a good shot, and then you play defense and you win the game. Now, the reason why that's very suboptimal is that you can't assume that you're going to score. In fact, you probably should assume you're not going to score, especially in a low-scoring game where hardly anybody could get the ball in the basket. Because now if you wind the clock down at that point and you don't score, well, now you have to foul the other team. Now you're down by more points with less possessions and less chances to win the game. So it's kind of math. It's kind of just basic game strategy in theory. So what the Wolves do is they brought the ball down kind of half speed. Mike Conley did not look to attack very quickly at all. They kind of just sort of stood around for a few seconds. And then they had to like run a play, and that took a while. So by the time they got like a floater that ended up being like, not a great shot that they missed, there was probably, I'll go check this thing. There was probably 10 seconds left on the clock. They get the rebound. The game's over. The game is over at that point. They make the 2 free throws or whatever. So that's the whole issue here, is that you cannot run the clock down. You need as many possessions as you can, as many opportunities as you can. Maybe you get an offensive rebound, But there were like 5 people that not only wanted to reject this notion, but they wanted to be belligerent. They wanted to be really hostile towards me and try and either make fun of me or trying to, insist that I was sort of wrong. And if you go on Twitter, you'll see I'm extremely patient because it feels like this is the chance to help somebody learn a little bit more about the game. But there was no growth mindset.
There's no reason for hostility in a basketball commentary, right? Especially when it gets personal. Like I don't. There's no reason for that. But I think conventional wisdom is, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, is hold for one shot because you believe you have a great chance to get the bucket, and then it doesn't give the team the other chance to get the bucket. I would say on your offensive rebound side of things, I think at the least you should give some time after the basket to get an offensive rebound, like get it up with like maybe 3 seconds left instead of a buzzer beater. But I guess that their point is that you don't want to give them another chance to score once you score. But you're saying that the math says that you probably won't score. But let's say you have a KD. Let's say you have a Steph Curry. I mean, your team will probably be pretty confident that that guy could get a basket and score. And one other thing, I think also to your point that an early look is often your best look.
Yeah, actually, I'm just kind of looking at what happened here because I'm trying to remember what the last thing was. So really quickly, let's go through this. So the Clippers get the ball back with about 14 seconds to go, right? Which is still like, it's time, but they have to foul. They make the 2 free throws, so now the Clippers are up by 3. And they, I got to look at that last possession because they don't even get a score for 10 seconds. Now, remember, these are pros. Right, professional basketball players in the NBA, especially a team that's good, like the Wolves, when they want to get a basket, you should be able to go get a shot. You should be able to do a quick drag screen, boom, a handoff, boom, and you get right to the basket. They have Anthony Edwards. They have guys that can get to the basket. So they lost at least one possession out of all of this, and so as a result, they get the dunk to cut it to 1, but then the game is over because they inbound the ball with 3 seconds to go. The clock runs out. So the key here is you can't assume that you're going to score. Now, we've seen this also in the past where there's even less time, where there's you get the ball back and there's 15 seconds to go. And then and we've seen this a little bit once or twice, I think in the last several years, I've seen a team do this where they wind the clock down, to get the last shot. Again, that is folly. It is just suboptimal, clock management. You don't want, if you're down by 1 or down by 2, whatever, you have to go and get the quickest shot you can. You need more possessions. It's math. That's really all it is. And for whatever reason, yes, people used to think, I don't want to give them another chance to then win it. Right. That's the idea. But then you simply can't assume that you're just going to score. That's the fault in that whole logic. Right. You have to be able to get a shot. If you miss, foul, get the ball back again. You need more possessions. If you have less possessions, it's less chances to win. That's the bottom line when you're losing.
How do you feel about Jordan's last shot? He let the shot clock go down, kind of pushed off on Byron.
That's an interesting question. Were they down?
Yeah.
Or was it tied?
It's a good question yourself. We're getting a lot of great questions, but I think Jordan used to hold it in general.
And by the way, that's great. And they didn't understand this. We now understand this. You know what I mean? For a long time with the modern era with the 3-ball and whatever, we've been able to refine these the game clock management scenarios, right? So if that was the case, I can look it up here. Game 6, Jazz Bulls, 1998. I think that's that one, right?
Is it fair to say that there is no right and wrong in this situation?
No.
Really?
I think that there's right. I mean, if you're talking about the most optimal, the best way to do this, and by the way, we see teams do this all the time. They do it correctly because they understand and they're well coached and they understand that. I can't see any scenario when you're down by 1 and there's 30 seconds to go where you hold the ball. There isn't. You can do that. Maybe you might even win the game doing that, but it's certainly not the way. It's not the best way to do that.
You're saying it doesn't give you the best chance to win.
Yeah. Now I got the box score here, but I don't have play-by-play. Maybe B-Ball Reference has it. They'll have it. They'll have it. Let me find it. Okay. 1998 Game 6. Yeah. You're right. They were down. So that's fascinating. They were down. Let me see if we can get the play-by-play here.
And what do you think if you have a Jordan, Steph Curry, a Kevin Durant? You're
that good. You're going to score. I don't care.
Ooh.
I still think you got to do it. You got to go. Where is this one? Jordan makes a 2-point jump shot from 17 feet. Remember, he made a layup before that. So where the turnover by Karl Malone happened at 18 seconds, and then Michael takes it at 5. Yeah. Yeah, that's problematic. Technically, that they should not have done that. Believe it or not, they should have gone. Okay, I guess. Do you want to carve out a Michael Jordan exception? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's fair to make a point that if your player is so great and you're very confident he's going to score, that, maybe you go with that route. But, I think you're right for the most part. I think,
okay.
Honestly, I think for the most part, you might get a better shot up earlier in the shot clock or earlier in that possession than later. Later, there's actually a chance you won't even get a shot up.
Right.
So I think there's two schools of thought.
Right. Like, here's the thing. Like, you don't necessarily want to take a timeout because that lets the defense set up. It might let them substitute for better defenders. And a lot of times, yes, like when you go quicker, you'll get the better shot versus slowing it down. That's the other argument against this. You want to slow it down, take the air out of the clock, and then let all the defenders get in position and ready to go. They can talk to each other. They're all set to go. They're not going to make a mistake as easily.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people around the NBA, and they tell me it's like a misconception that you think if you hold the ball, this is not even end the game. This is just the game in general, that you're going to get better shot quality later in the clock, which is just not the case. Often you get better shot quality in the beginning of the clock.
Exactly. It's been proven pretty much. It's just why the pace has increased so much over the last decade or two, because they want to try and get that better shot. But again, these are pros,
Yeah. And then you're going to get more shots over time as well. You want shots on target.
Now, this also folds into the thing where we had a little discussion earlier over the weekend about, like, in the high school level, the conventional wisdom, if you're going up against a team that's better than you, like it has more talent or physically better than you want to limit possessions. And I can just tell you right now, Combo, that all that will do is delay the blowout to the third quarter. And no one will be happy with that. And then without the shot, I came out of the shot clock thing where there's still half the states in the union don't have a shot clock. And you will see 42-39 or 35-33 games where the team it doesn't attack. Now, part of the problem is the defense lets them take the air out of the ball. It's a really big problem. But the bottom line here is that if you want to limit possessions because you feel like you're not as talented as the other team, you're actually playing into their hands. You're making your team less aggressive, which is what, for a more talented team, is going to take advantage of that. You're turning your back. You're not looking at the basket. They're going to press up even more. It becomes a craziness out of that. So it also lets coaches off the hook at the high school level. Your job is supposed to develop players. And you got to teach them how to play offense, how to be aggressive, how to get the aggressive teams to work against themselves by drawing fouls on them, learning how to handle a ball against pressure. All those things are important and make your team better. And if you're just going to throw your hands up and say, we're not good enough, I'm not going to have to coach anybody, we're just going to hold the ball. That's BS. That should not be a criteria for coaches to use. So I think that's another interesting issue, which kind of defies whatever the conventional wisdom used to be, both mathematically and practically. If you want to lose that game 95-75, you know what? Everyone's going to walk out of that game with like their head held high. They played, they competed, they scored points against the other team. They went back and forth. They took their best shot. If you want to go and lose that game, 52-30. Well, no one's going to walk out of that gym with their head held high. They would just be depressed, I would think. So it's all like, what do we hear? What are the point of this whole thing? You follow me?
Yeah, I'm following you. And shouts to Martin Jose, who said hello to both of us. I think we have a super chat we have two super chats, and one of them will segue us into the Celtics, I think.
Okay, well, let's get to that. So, Zeka, thank you so much for very, very generous of you. Really appreciate it. They're saying Celtics are tied as of now with the 2016-17 Warriors in net rating at 11.6. How crazy is that? They have legit no excuse not to make the finals. Yes, this is a team that's just steamrolling over everybody. In fact, I wanted to kind of get their lineup stuff out on the screen. Have you been watching them at all?
Yeah, I have been watching them, and I think they have a better chance if they steamroll through the playoffs. My biggest issue with them is like when the game gets tight, end of game situations, even end the shot clock situations late. Like, will these two, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, come up big? If they're beating teams 4-0, 5-0, that kind of goes out the window. So I think that's their best chance if they just steam through the playoffs like they are in the regular season. But if things get tight, I'm not the most confident that they could actually get it done. I still have the Bucks winning the East.
Interesting. Now, did you see what happened in the first quarter, yesterday's game against the Warriors?
Tell me.
They decided that, and apparently in the interview after the game, Draymond said, like a few minutes before the game, they decided, hey, let's not guard Jaylen Brown.
Yes. I saw that.
Dare him to shoot. Let's get it in his head. He'll start breaking shots. Well, you know how well that worked?
It didn't work well, but I have seen solid shooters who shoot worse when you kind of have that strategy. I
mean, okay, the strategy is right. It's sound to some degree. The dude, though, went 6 for 12 in the period, 5 for 9 from 3, 19 points, and they ended up taking a 44-22 lead, which ended the game before it started. So after the first couple of threes, you got to stop doing it. I think that was the problem. I think they gave him too many, and so I don't understand why there wasn't a better adjustment quicker than that. Let's look at the lineup stuff for the Celtics, because it's not just enough to say plus 11, whatever overall. Obviously their starting lineup probably has the highest net rating of any high usage 5-man lineup in the league at plus 14.3. So they scored 122.5 point offensive rating, and they give up 108.2, both of which are pretty almost number one in and of themselves. For both sides of the ball. So that's Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Brown, Tatum, White. Okay, terrific. That's as good a starting five as we're going to see, right? Is there anybody better?
No. They have the best top 6 in the league.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think, and Darren Faust said the Bucks pick is a joke, and we're going to get to super chats. Martin Jose super chat a little bit, but let me address that. I don't think it's a joke, because I still believe in Giannis and Dame as playoff performers more than any other duo in the East. And also, there's some defensive things that they're starting to look better upon. More drop, better switches.
Wait, are we talking about? Well, let's wait. We didn't finish the Celtics.
We can get back. I'm just saying he said the Bucks pick is a joke, so I'm addressing him. I usually don't even. You know what? I usually don't even address the comments. I don't even look at it. But today I am. So let me address this. I believe in Dame and Giannis as playoff performers more than any other duo in the East, and I also think they're starting to switch some things defensively that could get them better. I think they're 10th in defensive rating since Doc got there, if I'm not mistaken, and also I think that they will win the East.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get to that. But let's just finish the lineup stuff for the Celtics. So I feel like I kind of want to dive into this for a second. So we already did this. I did a video, and please go watch it if you haven't, because it was really good. And sometimes I guess when I do multiple teams, they don't always get as many views. But go watch the pick and roll pairings I just did, the top 3 in the league. You'll see Brown and Porzingis are number one, or one of the top 3. But then you also, if you look at the list I show in the beginning, you'll see Tatum and Porzingis also in the top 5, whatever that is. So it's Porzingis. This is the issue that the Celtics are going to have. Porzingis didn't even play yesterday, I believe. And I'm not losing my mind. Let me make sure. Right, he didn't play yesterday, and they still did what they did, partly because again they had this weird, wacky strategy that backfired, and they didn't adjust fast enough. But that's the key: is Porzingis' health has to be the most important thing here. If he can't stay healthy, then they suddenly are not this all-time great team.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And part of it is when they run the pick and roll with him on offense, he pops to the 3. And if you have Brown and Tatum to deal with on the ball as a ball handler, it's like you have to just sort of concede that 3, and he can nail those.
Yeah, I mean, they never had a player like Porzingis before. And they actually have 3 players that are superstars in their role when it comes to Drew Holiday, Derek White, and Porzingis. No other team has that luxury. Like Denver has 1 or 2, right? Like the best teams usually have 1 or 2. We could put Wiggins in that role when he was really rolling with the Warriors, and Gordon with Denver. But the Celtics actually have 3 of those guys. And Porzingis often looks like their second best player.
Now, and the other thing is when you have Horford out there who has gravity, you now have 5 players who have severe, gravity. You got to guard them on the perimeter. And that's, we don't always see that, right? Not every team can start that way. Now, when they go to Horford in the lineup without Porzingis, which is happens a lot, the second most played lineup, primarily because KP is out, enough times. That lineup's only a plus 4.3. Now that's interesting because Horford is also a shooter who can space the floor, but and their offense takes a little bit of a dip and their defense gets worse. So that's an interesting development, which in the past hasn't necessarily been a problem when they've had that normal lineup without KP there. So that's something to bear in mind. But their third most played lineup then becomes Horford, Porzingis, Brown, Tatum, and White, which I also like. They can go really big and maintain their spacing, again, because Horford and Porzingis can shoot it. And that one's plus 18.1, even better than the starters. And that's probably the secret sauce that they're going to be able to go to, is the double bigs that can shoot it and kind of, and play defense.
Yeah. Top 6, just phenomenal. Maybe even Tillman could give them something off the bench where they got him in the trade deadline time. And the Celtics look great. And shouts to Adam Stanko in the comments section.
Oh, Adam's an old friend of mine. I got to see him. Where does this go? There he is. I definitely miss you, Adam. I wish you were closer. But we'll have to make a plan sooner or later.
We have to get him on the show at some point.
Well, maybe he wants to come on right now. Adam, are you around? Let me just drop me a comment. I'll email you the link if you can jump on. Adam has been an integral part of the show. He's been part of our draft coverage in the past, and just all around knows a lot about hoops. All right,
Thanks for the super chat. And Martin Jose actually has a draft like super chat right here.
Well, thank you. Best friend of the breakdown, Martin, says, what do you think Nikola Jovic's upside like in Miami? I still think he's a steal of the 22 draft. Same with Jaime. I think one of them will be huge in the playoffs. You always loved Jovic, I think, right?
Always loved him. Talked about him. Thought he was the steal of the draft. I think the Heat is a great place for him. He kind of showed point guard type skills with the ability to play the big. And I think moving forward, he is going to be one of those playmaking bigs for the Heat. And he has high ceiling. Hopefully he doesn't get traded for some reason, because there's other teams in the league that know what we know. And if they try and get somebody in the offseason, he's often in those trade packages. I think Jaime is the guy who's going to help them more this playoff series, but Jovic is going to be a good player for years to come.
I mean, I agree. I mean, the guy is legit like 6'10", and he can have the ball and he can shoot it.
Yeah.
Right now, actually, she's shooting 45% from the field. So that's a really great spacer for them. But he's been making plays off the bounce, I think, recently. I've been seeing him.
I mean, coming in, when he was playing overseas, he had the basketball in his hands. There was a lot of point Jovic going on. Yeah.
Now, the Jaquez thing is interesting because I had gone and I'd seen him, and I had one of my good friends. We watch UCLA games. I'd been trying to tell him for years, saying, like, don't get too excited about this guy. He's not going to be able to play like this in the NBA at all. And he went to the one place, I think, that would recognize his talents and be able to integrate them as well as he could. And I've been just so pleasantly surprised by how well Jaquez has played. I mean, he's a legit, he's a veteran, basically, right? He's played so many years in college, and he comes in there as a really, and he's so strong. Plus, the senior year, he had injuries to his ankles, so he didn't have the kind of lift. I mean, I don't remember him, just flying off the ground like he has in Miami. So, just really, really fantastic fit for him. Solid, both defensively and offensively. So I would suspect that he's the guy that's going to maintain his role in the minutes. Jovic probably would lose some of those. He only plays 17 anyway per game, so he'll probably lose some of those. But I would anticipate Jaquez, getting as many, if not more, than he gets in the regular season and being instrumental.
He's a complete basketball player already. Like, he's one of those players that you look at, like, he really doesn't have too many weaknesses. You could say the athleticism is a weakness. He was in this year's dunk contest. Like,
oh, I know.
Shocking.
Stunning. Because again, I never saw. He must have been banged up even more like his junior and sophomore years too. Because I was blown away in the first few weeks, and when we started seeing him just get above the rim. And he's at almost 13 a game, playing 30 minutes a game.
Right.
And he's actually getting some threes up, but he's not shooting them well. But at the very least, he's a threat from there. He's willing to shoot them. So just an all around, and he's even averaging 2.6 assists per game, which is for that position is really great. So just a great pick for them. One of those Miami development ones, which continues to add to that lore. So really great for them. Great value, and Jovic as well.
Yeah.
We have now. Did Adam reply?
Shouts to Martin Jose for the super chat. We appreciate you.
Thank you. We have another one, though. We have Starscream, who I believe is we haven't seen him. Oh, yeah. Remember, thank you so much, Starscream. We haven't seen you in a while, but thanks for being here. Awesome to see you. As good as the Celtics are, Jokic-Murray duo, too much.
Yeah.
Somebody even tried to argue with me that I was like, I didn't believe that the Nuggets were going to win last year. I was one of the first guys, like in February of last year, to say like the Nuggets are the favorites for me. They're the ones who are going to win the title. So I don't know what that's all about. And even this year, people wanted to write them off. They didn't look as good. They had a stretch. But there is absolutely no question that this is the team that is going to repeat. I mean, I don't see how they lose short of an injury.
I agree 100%. As much as I would like to see OKC beat the Celtics in the finals, I think it is going to be Bucks Nuggets, in my opinion.
Yeah, OKC just, and then also you've been watching how they're guarding Giddey, right?
Yeah, I mean, the shooting is an issue. I think he's definitely the guy that will be moved eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I love how he plays. He's a great passer, and there is a version where he can integrate himself into this team, and they don't need to have him. We saw how Draymond, when he was being guarded like this, and other players like Rondo, there are ways where you can run your offense where he's not going to be just like they back way off of him and he just takes 3 dribbles and bricks the 3, right? Like there are ways to get him involved where he's maximizing his talents, and I don't know if they are going to do that or if they're going to look at that hard enough. I actually just tweeted out this morning where, I don't want to just light up like the Thunder coaching.
Yeah, because he's been doing a good job. Great job, Dan and Galt.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had Chip Engelland there. But if you're going to do the traditional, methods of teaching shooting, which the problem we're already here is because I'm sure Giddey's methods that he was taught in Australia were also old, the old school ways, I'm not surprised that he's going to struggle. His rhythm is terrible. His alignment, I think, is pretty close to 10 toes to the rim. So you need to get out of the box, and you need to have a different methods like the things that I've been developing for the last several years. I have no doubt I could help him. And I think there's people out there that can. And if he's going to get stuck in this with a very specific way of shooting and learning how to do it, then I think he'll be frustrated and not see much improvement, unfortunately.
It's weird in 2024 that people don't improve as shooters. Like even Draymond, like I feel like he should be a better shooter with the information that they have.
Are you unaware he's shooting 45% on threes this year?
Is it the corner?
No. I'm doing the video on it right now. I'm actually focusing on LeBron because LeBron is also at a career high.
Is this LeBron's best shooting year ever?
He had one where he was at 41, but this year I think he's at 43. This is a career high. It's close, but it was only one year. Now, do you want to go into the LeBron fans and what they think about him as a shooter? Because this has been a months-long thing where what I tweeted out that he fouled the ball with his eyes, but like all the great shooters have done in the past, but he's not among the great shooters of the past because his percentage doesn't indicate that. And are you aware of how many of the diehard LeBron fans believe he's one of the great all-time three-point shooters in the league?
How many?
They're out there. So right now he's at 408, 40.8, and his highest before that was 40.6. He's barely ahead of his career, but he's taking more than he was then back in Miami. And unless something happens, which could, because again, the body of LeBron's work up till now has been, average at best, average 3-point shooter at best, very streaky, up and down. People wanted to parse out certain areas where they could see that he was like 40%, like, in game 7s in the third quarter of the, Sunday games, like whatever it was. I'm like, okay, fine. If you can find areas, but that's not how you judge 3-point shooters. You have to have a big body of work, and his body of work has been around average. We know why, and I've shown why for a long time about what the alignment and rhythm issues he has. So I'm about to break it down and look. That said, the main areas that we see LeBron really finding success right now are the left wing and the right corner. Let me see if I can find those real quick. I got those. Oh, I could share this with you.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Let me share this with you.
I think almost every wing shooter shoots better from the opposite of what hand they are.
Right, exactly. So let's get into this. So this is his last year where he shot pretty poorly. Let me take off the super chat real quick. So last year you can see all the way around is blue, right? And if you're listening to this with the pod, sorry, but we'll just try and talk you through it. And now if we go quickly to the shot chart from this year, the main difference here you'll see is the left wing, which is flipped. It's the right side, but the left wing. He went from 27.1% to 39%. It's a pretty big jump, 12 points. Now, when you're on the left wing, it's easier to find your alignment as a righty because your right hip and your right elbow are already aligned to the basket. A lot of those are going to be off the dribble, right? So he's moving to his left a little bit or whatever, and that's a big reason why. Now, we were also parsing out catch and shoot versus off the dribble versus transition versus half court. There's a lot of variables you have to go through, so it's not just a quick, there's all sorts of shot selection things that are going to come up. So it's going to take me the rest of today to go through it. And then tomorrow I'll probably drop the video. So stay tuned for that because I'm going to talk about LeBron. I kind of want to touch upon Draymond and Jimmy Butler, two other guys who traditionally are not good 3-point shooters who are suddenly elite. They're on much smaller volume. So it's very exciting, very interesting to see. Now, the right corner is another one of those reasons. He catches the ball from the left side a lot, as the ball swings around. Or from higher than where he is. So his, again, right elbow and right hip are aligned better. And this has been a struggle for him. His elbow would flare out a lot, and he would have a hard time finding that alignment. So this all makes sense that he'd be catching fire now. That said, why wouldn't he be better than that in those areas earlier in the other seasons?
That's what we have to find out in the video.
Yeah, so you can see that. But it's pretty significant. Now, that said, right corner threes, he's taken 14 this year. Last year, he took 18. Now, so that means he's already taken more right corner threes this year than he had all that. Almost, he's on track to take more. So he's been able to find a few more shots on the margins in different areas that are really much better for him. So they've probably been looking at this and figured, all right, let's get you more shots there. Let's cut down on a couple of the bad shots you've been taking because he's overall his 3-point attempt per game is lower this year. So that's important as well. And that's another way to get your percentage up, right? Is eliminate a couple bad shots. a game.
Most definitely. I mean, he takes tough shots off the dribble often. Often from the corners too.
Uh,
Sometimes he backs up, and does like that fade thing.
and the shot clock
Sometimes
too.
yeah. Sometimes it's in the mid range. Sometimes it's from three. But he takes some tough shots.
Yeah. By the way, I saw something a great term that I understand I hadn't really seen before, which was throwing hand grenades, and it basically meant you dribble the ball down, you dribble the shot clock down like an ISO, and then you decide not to shoot it, and you fire it to a teammate who now has no time to do anything but just throw it up contested. Yeah. And I love that take. It's throwing a hand grenade. And I had to look at who is the king of that. I wonder if they have that as a stat, because I would probably say like Harden might be that guy.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know about LeBron. LeBron very well could be the guy who gets the ball then has to deal with it. But he might do that a little bit too.
It's all the isocentric guys. So you got to think it's Trey, Luka, Harden, Bron, players of that mold.
Yeah. I don't know how we would track that, but maybe someone's tracking that. In the comments, let me know if you've seen that. Now let's get to the Drew Show, best friend of the breakdown. Thank you, Drew Show. It's so great of you to see you, and thank you so much. Jaime Jaquez is the Shane Battier of today. Interesting. Is he?
I think Shane was even more of a cerebral of a defender than Jaime Jaquez, though. But Jaime Jaquez is younger. But then Jaime Jaquez also has more in his bag. Like, he could create some stuff for his own better than Shane.
Yeah, he's got a post-up game. So I suppose role-wise, maybe, but like I don't think I don't see a ton of similarities there. But it's interesting. It's a good thought experiment. But yeah, either way, it's just a pleasure. I'm glad to have been wrong on my prediction from a couple of years ago, looking at him play. And it also just goes to show you it's very difficult to figure out sometimes these college players and what they're going to do in the NBA. And we've seen a couple of these guys. I did a video on Donovan Mitchell and how he went from kind of a ho-hum scorer to an elite scorer over his rookie year. He was
kind of like a scrappy defensive player who could score as well, but he didn't have this type of bag in the NBA. Obviously, he's worked on his skill set tremendously.
He has. Well, I think the point I made was, he was getting similar shots, he just wasn't making them. And then once he got with like a pro trainer for a solid 3 or 4 months over the summer after he got drafted, like they were able to clean some things up. It also is a bit of an indictment to the coaching in college, I got to tell you. I do think that a lot of the coaches in college, their skill development is suboptimal. It's still stuff from the 90s. They don't get it. They don't want to get it. And it's really a problem. And we're seeing just too many kids who, you get a scholarship to D1 program, just like you'd go get into a top engineering program, right? If you get to an engineering program at the top college, you're expecting, the most cutting edge education and the most up-to-date information and whatever. Well, you probably expect that too at a D1 school when you get there and whatever. And it turns out that their methods are flawed and old and outdated.
It feels like, though, I mean, the basketball and athletic programs are so separate from the college. So it's interesting. Like, they kind of let that run on its own, right? Like, let the basketball people deal with the basketball. But in the academic side of things, I'm sure there's more influence on that side, right?
I mean, I guess. I just think it's almost the sense of it's the concept. The concept should be that when you get that scholarship and you show up and they have this amazing facility and whatever, that they're actually going to teach you, in the most cutting edge way, that you're going to unlock the most potential you can. Better players, better team. I agree. So anyway, Starscream makes a good point that Spencer Dinwiddie is the king of hand grenades. I don't know. He hasn't looked great, by the way, at the Lakers. I don't know if you've seen him. He just got to the Lakers a few games ago. Hopefully he'll kind of, get more settled and figure it out. He'll have one of those games in the playoffs where he plays well and everybody will be talking about him, I think. Yeah. He's one of those guys. Yeah. And especially the way the Lakers have their offense, it's like that's guaranteed to happen. Like someone's going to have to really, quote unquote, step up. And when that happens, it like kind of is a function of their offense kind of makes sense, because of the hand grenade stuff, right? And the way that they run it. Adam Stanko was saying that Don McLean was the trainer for Donovan Mitchell and Jaquez. Is that right? Because I would put McLean in the old school trainer category. Well, maybe you have to help. I know Don is Adam's guy, great trainer, but I also think that like a lot of these guys work out with multiple people. That's true too. Yeah. So that could have been what happened. Because I've seen some of that stuff and it's been pretty much what McLean did when he was in UCLA. But maybe he's updated some stuff. So I definitely want to hook up with Don and check out some of his workouts because he's the guy that does a lot of stuff in LA, or at least he used to. I don't know if he's still doing it. So I want to check that out. But you got to be willing to stretch your mind and get out there and do and figure out just better methods than what we did. Like if you're teaching something that you had learned from like the 80s or the 90s or know that that's where it's rooted in. I would really strongly recommend taking a strong look at that and figuring out maybe some more optimal ways to teach anything really. Right. I know that. Yeah, Don does a lot of the pre-draft stuff. But Adam, is he still doing? And by the way, are you busy, Adam? Do you want to come on or no? Let me know.
Adam says nobody better.
Nobody better. Right. Anyhow, Lakers are frauds. When you talk about them, it shows you're clueless about basketball. Huh. Adam's at work. He can't talk. Now, when did we talk about them and anything like for instance,
we got to get Adam on at a later date though. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we'll make it. Let's make it happen.
We'll do a draft episode if that's okay with Adam. Yeah.
Now, but so Ed's comment is interesting because we'll light him up. I guess. You know what? I'm not putting him on screen, but if we were just saying for like 10 minutes how amazing the Lakers are, they're going to go all the way to the finals. Okay, then I would see him saying that we don't know what we're talking about. But
it's always the guys. It's always the guys who don't have a picture of themselves in the AVI that talk the most junk. I noticed that.
All right, yeah, probably right. The anonymous, because I don't think anyone is going to tell you the Lakers are very good. In fact, a lot of what's going on, like in the box score, that looks impressive, is pretty empty, right? And then it doesn't back up by much. So. Oh, by the way, Earl Salt makes a good point about Gabe Vincent. I think Gabe Vincent was a pretty important part of this whole thing in terms of their planning, and the fact that he he's out. Is he out for the season? He's just not going to play again. I don't understand what happened.
Yeah,
I guess because I feel like whatever I'd heard about his knee from the beginning of the year, didn't sound like
he's playoff proven. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think he kind of would do some things, and he did. At the very beginning, you saw some evidence of this is what he could bring, like what he did for the Heat, and they probably could use a little bit more of that. And so now that he's not there, they're just sort of everything else is kind of falling apart to some degree. And yeah, they're not good enough to beat. I mean, they're good enough to be a 10th, and maybe make it into the play-in, right?
Yeah, nah. I mean, the 5 through 10 in the West is really close. So a lot of those teams could end up at 5. Some of them will end up in the play-in. We got to see how this goes, but it's been a crazy roller coaster season for the Lakers.
That is true, and it's weird because they do have when you have AD and LeBron, you think okay that goes a long way, but not anymore. Not in this league, not against Denver. And we can get back to Denver if you want. I mean, Jokic had another no-look lob to Aaron Gordon because they simply know where they are without having to look. They don't panic. They can simply just find any shot they want to find, and they know that, and they can knock them down. I mean, listen, Jamal Murray is not getting the kind of props he deserves. He is still one of the top guards. Did not make the All-Star team this year, but it's just so completely solid. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, the guy is the guy you want on your team to win a championship.
Yeah, most definitely.
Now, what else? And by the way, D'Lo is a good opportunity. D'Lo is exceptional. He plays really well, but then he'll make some really, really boneheaded plays back to back, and it just tends to be all over the place, and it's part of the reason why you're going to see such inconsistency with the Lakers. And a lot of times coaches will just prefer to not have that. You might lose a little bit on the high end, but you'll get rid of the low end stuff, and then you'll be better overall as a team.
As a consistent team.
Yeah. So if they found a guy, if they could get, Vanderbilt, for instance, a guy who's not going to really do much on offense.
They've been giving Cam Reddish minutes over Vanderbilt at times.
Yeah. They had somebody that could just really play good defense and, hit a 3 on occasion. Does that fit better? But that said, with the way their offense runs, it also helps to have D'Lo there because they do need someone who can put the ball on the ground, make a couple passes. It's weird, but then he literally just gets distracted or whatever, throws the ball out of bounds, steps out of bounds. Stuff like that just not happen really with a good team. And I really like D'Lo. I really do. I enjoy watching him play. He's very fun to watch. But if you want to get to the NBA Finals, that's going to be the problem when you have a guy like that who's up and down. The Drew Show is another super chat. Thank you so much. Drew is always there for us. Very generous. Here's got a hot take. Ready? The Dubs would have maximized their run, which at the end, if they drafted the top SRs and brought over Euros instead of one and done. Top seniors. Okay.
I mean, is that only for the Warriors, or does Drew believe that for every team?
Right. Well, they obviously are talking to the people when they picked Wiseman, they could have gotten Wagner, right? Or
Well,
whatever.
Wagner's actually a one and done.
Was he one of that? Really?
Yeah, Michigan.
Okay. So, and by the way, they themselves learned this by taking Clay, Steph, Draymond, all those guys were multiple. I think Bogut played, multiple years in college. They were all, seasoned. So yeah, I mean, there it goes. Hindsight's 2020. And it's the draft is always a crapshoot. And listen,
Yeah.
I still can't believe that James Wiseman has struggled and probably doesn't find his way in the NBA. I just can't believe it. I having seen what his ability and the way he moves and the way he could shoot a little bit, handle the ball a little bit. I just can't understand what's going on there.
Does he move that well?
Oh yeah, he's very fast. He is beautiful. He was agile. He had a great moves in the post.
Do you think it's not the physical or skill set? It's more the intangibles.
Could be like mental. It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I see a guy move that way and have some skills. He didn't play a lot in college, right? So there wasn't a lot of seasoning there. So maybe the point of him would have been he should have stayed in college another year or two, really, really developed. And I just don't see how he wouldn't have been just another one of those really, really good players that, is impactful. It's one of those things. I just can't believe it.
I have a question for you and everybody in the comment section, since I'm paying attention to the comment section today. What will prime Wemby's stat line look like?
Oh, prime Wemby stat line. That's a good question. Probably 30, 15, and 6.
I think he averages more than 30 at some point.
You think he averages more than 30? Okay, well, how much?
I also think he's a little bit different than like the Duncan Jokic mold. I think he cares about stats a little bit more than those guys. Not in a bad way. I think he's going to be a winning player, but I think he wants to lead the league in scoring and in every other statistical category. He seems like that type of guy who winning is most important, but he does care about those stats as well.
Okay. I mean, listen, he's already proven that he's willing to make the right play. Like his passing, he had a beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't mean that in a negative way at all.
Yeah, right. Totally.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But I'm saying because a lot of guys, they don't have the full package, right? He came down, got the ball in the post, and then a one-timer just threw blind, bounce pass. The guy missed the layup, I believe, but it was still
great feel for basketball. That's why when Shaq says Bol and Wemby, Bol's better than Wemby. It's it's the intangibles that you can't just go skill set for skill set. You got to look at the court awareness and the intangibles of basketball as well.
Oh, absolutely. And because what he was trying to probably say was Bol has a lot of the same skills as Wemby does, and at the same size. But yes, he has not been able to kind of consistently put that together at all. Now, part of the reason why is maybe just the teams he was on wouldn't give him an opportunity like they are for Wemby. But because I've always kind of scratched my head about Bol. Whenever I've seen him get those garbage time minutes, they kind of throw him out, whatever. It's like he constantly displays a lot of that skill. So it's weird to me, but obviously I must have to watch him 100% of the time to kind of get the full picture. There's something going on there. Maybe he does make a bunch of mistakes and they have to take him out, but either way, it definitely is different on a skill level too from Wemby, I believe. So, but yeah, let's go back to the numbers. So you think he's going to get 35?
Yeah, he'll average 35.
So 35, fair enough. And by the way, he might be the guy that gets 100.
Oh, yeah.
35, 15.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And 6, we said 6. I would probably,
maybe 7 or 8.
Like that number where the LeBrons. Well, actually, LeBron's way higher.
You know what? I mean, he might get a lot of doubles, so it might go higher than 6.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. So it might be higher. Yeah. I mean, especially with if it becomes heliocentric more, where he really dominates the ball a lot, then it would probably have to go up by just by that, provided they get the team around him continues to improve. Yeah. And so, by the way, if he does that, right, if he does 35, 15, and 7 and shoots a bunch of threes, he's the greatest of all time. If he did it for 8 or 9 years,
I think his GOAT window is open. It's still very, very early. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, by the way, because I remember last year, 2 years ago, we said the same thing about Luka. If Luka averages a 30, 10, and 10 for 9 straight years.
Luka's GOAT window's open too. You
Yeah,
never know.
but you have to say he's the great. I mean, unless you want to argue about the defensive side, which is something. Then,
I mean, Luka, they both have a lot of championships to win to get into that conversation. And I don't think championships should be the end all be all, but they definitely need to win some more
well,
championships.
if you want to do the GOAT, then you got to use championships, right?
Well, I think let's say one of them gets 5, but everything else is so much further along than anybody who ever played.
Right.
Like let's say Wemby, this is so hypothetical, average 40, 10, and 10. And then he gets over the course of his career, but then he only gets 5 championships,
Right.
I mean, he's
if
still the GOAT.
5 and the other guy has 6,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's okay. But if you have 6 and the other guy
has one, and if you have 1,
then that you have to at least use that as a criteria,
it's in the equation. It just shouldn't be the end all be all.
Right, that's true. Yeah, and listen, Barkley is one of the greats of all time. He's just ran into Michael Jordan, and then some of the teams he's on just weren't optimal. And it was not his fault. He still played awesome.
So is he the best player to never win a chip?
Well, what's that list? It's Karl Malone, Barkley. Anybody else?
Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah, I mean, was Dominique exactly in that tier? Maybe not.
Is Barkley that much better than Dominique?
I would say he's better, but it's definitely a good question.
Maybe Dominique's a little underrated.
He might be a little underrated, but he really couldn't shoot very well.
I mean, he was dropping 50 on the Celtics.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
He'd get hot sometimes, but
he just didn't have a good enough team at any point to win at all.
But by the way, they did have a couple of really good teams that nobody wanted to play.
KG won a championship. Prod by Pac TV says KG. He won a championship.
Yeah, he won with the Celtics.
Yeah.
So he's not in that. He's not in that.
Pat Ewing's a good one. Reggie Miller's a good one.
Yeah, Pat Ewing, certainly, and another guy who ran it. Basically, it's whoever ran into Michael Jordan. That list.
That's part of it.
Let's see here. We have another one. Drew Show. Oh my goodness, Drew, thank you so much.
Thanks,
really,
Drew.
Always been so generous. Spurs fan here. Yes, I think the Spurs need to bring in vets and draft college seniors and put them around. I thought Colonel Sanders and draft college seniors and put them around Wemby next season. This dying Pop regime says don't skip steps, but vets aren't part of the steps. I agree. I think it's time to kind of just let's move on to the next chapter of the Spurs. It's probably time. It's been a long, long time with all the people in place. Of course, if I were in that situation, I would never want to stop coaching either. But he's got Pop's been there for 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah,
it is. It's time. It's time. Yeah. Enjoy. Have some wine. Go travel in the Riviera. Really.
When you have when you're a coach, you kind of have a little sense of urgency, maybe too much when you're younger. It's almost like he's too comfortable there. It's like this is
maybe. Yeah. But and they also did the same thing where they kind of with Wemby, because Wemby's kind of turned it on, I think, more recently too, and they're winning a little bit more. It's like they obviously want to get a higher draft picks. They're tanking, I imagine. So never mind, because in some respects, could they have unleashed Wemby? I mean, they kind of have been. I don't know. I think they're happy. They're happy with what's going on now, and they're happy they're losing a lot of these games, so they get a high draft pick. But they have a little bit of time around Wemby. He's still so young. They have a little bit of time. But I agree, it would be nice to kind of get this going. I was supposed to have to be after next year. So what are we at now? 23, 24, so 25, 26. It would be nice to see them really, just make the moves like that Houston tried to do this year, by getting Van Vliet, by getting Brooks, do something like that, kind of shore it up and get right into the conversation right away on that in 2 years from now. But I hear you. I hate to have to be so patient. Time is ticking. People are getting older, right? The Drew Show, we're not any younger than we were a few years ago. We wanted to, see it now. Steve Nash, by the way, another one of those guys didn't get a title. Good call. How are we going to?
Wait, we didn't. Nobody said T-Mac.
Tracy McGrady. He might be Elgin Baylor. Right. I think if you can argue Elgin was maybe on the team that won in 72, but they kind of retired in the middle of the year. So he might have gotten that ring, but I hear you. He didn't really play on the team.
I agree with Prod by Pac TV.
T-Mac?
I'm the first one who said that. Spurs need to get Trae Young. I totally agree.
Grant Hill. Grant Hill was so good. I did a video on him explaining why he's in the Hall of Fame, and he was like the next Michael Jordan. He really had that kind of dominance when he came in.
His first step was so quick.
Yeah, and his skill level, you couldn't stop him, and he could shoot from the outside from the long twos. So Grant Hill is one of those guys I really wish he would have been able to continue playing, in more of his prime without getting hurt. It's rough. All right. So let's see. We have one more super chat here. Jim Lurtz. Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate it. Random question. Did you like Mike D'Antoni? That's an interesting question. I did an interview with him, so I like him because he was very nice enough to do an interview with me. Yes, I think D'Antoni's effect on the game has been so profound that, and important. Ironically, though, and if you watch the interview I did with him, we talked a little bit about his offense that he ran, and he basically was running the offense that he ran in Europe when he was a really good player in the Italian, playing in the Italian league. And basically it's a lot of it's triangle offense. So he sort of like took the triangle offense and kind of did some different spacing with it, but then, initiated differently, but like kind of grabbed a lot of the same kind of actions. But yeah, there's no question offensively. Yes. D'Antoni is a guy who I love and respect. And I'm a triangle offense coach. Don't forget that. But what he did to basically took the triangle offense and modernized it and made it more how we can run it today. And how you want to speed it up, get the spacing, although triangle offense had a great spacing too. Yeah, I definitely loved, I love what he was able to do offensively and build and then influence. How about you?
Oh, yeah, I love D'Antoni, and I think he's a basketball savant in a lot of ways when it comes to coaching. And, a lot of what they do today is from his influence of just playing faster. Like we already talked about, like your best shot could be the early shot earlier. And, a lot of his offense has to do with that. And he's definitely one of the greatest coaches to never win a championship. We're talking about players. He's definitely one of the greatest coaches to not win one.
Yeah, like Lenny Wilkins is one of those. Now, I see in the comments there's a thing about describing T-Mac as lazy. And you have to remember, there's a danger with coaches and probably even fans too, is when you see a player and they don't have a facial expression that you would expect for them to have that indicates to you that they're playing hard, you can't just assume, the guy's just lazy or not playing hard because they don't have that look on their face.
You don't average that many points in the NBA with being lazy.
Right.
Like it's hard work to
and he played hard and he played with intensity, but I have to imagine the facial expressions that he had just indicated to certain people in a wrong way that he wasn't playing as hard as he could. And I think that's this nonsense. That's the scary part. It's kind of like in that Moneyball movie where they think the guy isn't good because his girlfriend's ugly. I think was this conversation they were having. Like he has no self-confidence. I mean, it's just insane. Like what sometimes the people would come to that kind of, impression. And, and this is some of the similar thing that I always felt with McGrady, who I would marvel at. I don't think I've ever seen anybody make scoring look so easy.
Oh, maybe that's another reson why people think he's lazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody score so easily in the game in the NBA. Never. Like Michael, nobody.
I think Katie's of that mold too, though. Katie make it look pretty easy.
Yeah, that's true. I think T-Mac was the originator. All right, we're gonna wrap this up because we're getting an hour, but we have another super chat. Thank you so much, Alan. I really, really appreciate it. Great to see you here again. The only thing Wemby is missing is to be successful, which is an elite playmaking point guard to feed him the ball, add a few 3-and-D wings and stretch fours as well. So obviously we have Trey on the Spurs. Help me. The brother is playing in the league too from Duke. Trey. Somebody tell me. I'm absolutely blanking now. This was the big reveal because they were playing alongside. They wouldn't play him enough alongside. They were letting Sohan do the point guard duties, which I think was all part of their reasoning to to keep their high draft pick. Right? They didn't want to necessarily win. Trey Jones. God damn it! Thank you. Did anybody tell me? Yes. Starstream, thank you. Billy Manico. Chunk, thank you so much. Anyway, Trey Jones, a guy who's like a real, just, a normal point guard who can get in there and set him up and not miss passes when he's open. Let me just kind of see here. I feel like they changed it up a little bit and they were giving him more run. Let me just look at his, honestly, I haven't watched enough of the Spurs recently. I finally watched the game the other day a little bit, but, and he got, he's been getting decent minutes now. So that's great. So they're figuring that out, and that might be the guy. I like Trey Jones, and okay, let me just make sure. Right now, overall per game, he's at like 10 points a game, 6 assists, and he doesn't turn the ball over. So he's the guy. But you're right. Everybody needs more 3D wings and stretch fours, right?
Always. Always.
Always. Okay, we got a couple more super chats. Wow, thank you guys for jumping in here at the very end here to help us out and keep the lights going. Joe B, great to see you, friend of the breakdown. Or it also says Tsurugi Azukino. Azukino. I hope I got that right. Apparently, Daryl Morey was asked who served as the Rockets' emotional leader during their 22-game win streak. He replied, probably Chuck Hayes. I would have said it was Scola. Remember that 22-game win streak?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
a long time ago.
Remember Chuck Hayes' free throw?
Oh, who could forget that? I wish I could forget that. I could have helped Chuck Hayes, no question. Now, that 22-game win streak was notable. If you don't remember, it was like, I don't know, 2011, maybe. Ron Artest was in that team. And they came out of nowhere, right, to go on this long win streak. Maybe I should do a video on that, because I wonder if I did then, although maybe it was even before B-Ball Breakdown. When was that? Somebody tell me when that win streak was. It might have been before 2010. Maybe I'm crazy though. Let's see here. But I don't know if it was Chuck. I mean, Chuck Hayes, I guess, but I would have said Louis Scola and probably Ron Artest. Those guys are the emotional leaders, whatever. Yeah, 07, if that's right, Ken. So if it was then, it was without Yao as well. So that was all part of this weird thing when they came out of nowhere to go on like one of the longest win streaks ever in the NBA, and it was so fun. So it was before. So maybe I'll go back and listen and do that one. Can you remind me to do that combo or somebody?
I will.
So when the season's over and it gets to be a little slower, remind me and I'll try and grab games. I can definitely get them
from that winning streak.
Yeah. I'll get some full games. We'll do some fun stuff with that because that was definitely the team work going on. Now, was that Van Gundy? Was he the coach? You're kind of you're pushing me, a little bit to go back and in my memory banks here. But let's see if it was 07, 08. Is that the year we're talking? It looks like it. It was right after Van Gundy. Then I think if it was 07, 08, is that the right year?
Oh, that's the year. Those are the years they had the big shooter. Like the original stretch five, what's his name?
Well, they had Yao, but like
no. After that, they had another stretch five, who shot a lot of threes.
No, they had Yao and Dikembe. So then, if I keep going, I guess someone's going to tell you in the comments. Is your comment section still open?
Yep.
Who was the shooter? Like Scola? Well,
no.
David Anderson.
No.
Who's that? Is that him? No. Who? No. I was thinking of somebody else. Let's see. I don't know. I'm looking through the centers. Brad Miller. Is that who you're talking about?
No.
He could shoot a little bit.
He could, but I'm not. But this guy shot way better.
I know Jordan Hill didn't shoot threes or didn't shoot. All right, let's try one more year. Greg Smith, Jordan Hill, Dale Bear.
Maybe it's a little bit later.
Yeah. All right, or he's not listed as a center. I'm just going by the positions how they're listed. I know it wasn't Cole Aldrich. So I don't know, and it definitely wasn't Omar Ashik. So anyway, all right. Well, we'll wrap this up. But great question there, or great, way to pull one out of there from way back in the day. So I think we answered that question though. I mean, that's who I would have said as far as who the emotional leader was. But all right, well, I think it's time to go. I got to do another demonstration pretty soon on my chase defense to a bunch of coaches. And don't forget if you haven't watched the last several videos, go back and watch them a couple times. Give me extra views. I could use it. I know it's a little bit of the dog days of the season right now, right? Where everyone's kind of waiting for the playoffs to start and everyone's sort of just kind of sitting on their hands a little bit, right? Right, Combo?
Yeah. I mean, you would think the dog days were more right before the playoffs and right before the All-Star break. I mean, it shouldn't be that much, especially if the West when it's 5 through 10, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's always the beginning of March, and even the players kind of drag, and they're all beat up a little bit, and then it starts to kind of get going again toward the end of this month, and then boom, and then don't forget the playoffs. For me, I do probably like one video a day, so we're gonna go crazy then. So be prepared. But anyway, thank you all for being here. Thank you everybody for the super chats. It's really really generous. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Combo, for being who you are.
You're welcome. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for being who you are, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, sports fans, the B-Ball Breakdown. We're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? Are you in it, Combo?
Yes, sir.